Okay, welcome back to video number 4, 3.54, video number 4. So today we're going to talk about audio, using audio, maybe taking something off YouTube, pulling it into Ableton, warping it into time, and creating some filtered loops just to give you some inspiration. Because at some point, you can't avoid using audio. You have to. You can't make a 100% MIDI track. You can if you're a stubborn bastard. You put everything through a sampler, for example, and chop everything up. But to be sincere, you're still running off an audio. You're just triggering the audio to play through a sampler. So don't get too hung up on using audio files. You can use loops. If you've got loops in your folder, feel free to use them. If you've got no loops, if you want to find some form of inspiration, you can. You can do that by going to YouTube, finding something that might be quite interesting and dragging it in. So I'm going to show you how to download off YouTube. I mean, I don't think this is legal, but it gives a fuck, right? Just go to YouTube, find something you like. What I've done is I've already downloaded something quite funny for today. We're going to use some, what's it called? Cheesy porn music. So we're going to take some cheesy porn music. We're going to drop it into the track. We're going to warp it a little bit. We're going to chop it up. We're going to put them into clips. We're going to mess around with the filter to create some filtered loops so it sounds different and see if we can find something that's kind of groovy. But for example, let's say I've just searched this flute player. Listen to this. Let's say you like that flute and you wanted to fuck around with that. So just go to Google, search YouTube to MP3, and you're going to come up with all of these dodgy little sites. I'll just click on a random one. More recently, I've been using this one. So I'll click that. Let's see if it opens up. It will. Now, all of these sites, you'll see they change all the time. They're full of adverts. So don't think that it doesn't work. Come back to YouTube, click the URL, click copy, go to a site like this, press right click, paste. And when I click this, there's going to be new windows opening all the time. So if I click, see there's an advert there straight away. Let's get rid of that. Click start and it will convert your file. Another advert, look, click. It's just littered with them. So when I click download now, it's going to take me about 3 or 4 attempts to click this before it will actually start downloading. So I'll press it. Look, it's trying to open. Don't even let it load. Just fucking close it. Click it again. Close it off. There, it's downloading. It's on the way. And you can close that off now. What you can do is just take your file straight from wherever it's downloaded, drag it straight into Ableton. At the start. Chances of this being in time are slim. So you need to warp it into some form of timing if you want to use it. A good way to do it is, if I just move myself out of the way a second, if you can use a metronome, which is up here, which will just be, they're fucking annoying though. I'll be honest, if I solo all of this, nobody wants to be listening to this. I'm trying to get stuff in time, so I don't really use that. If I really need it, I'll click this and just have the kick drum and try and match it to the kick drum pattern. But over the years of doing it, you kind of gauge, you start to have an eye for what's in time and what's not. Now, I don't get it right every time. Sometimes it's an absolute fucking nightmare and I have to spend ages warping something into time. But let's listen to it and see how it comes in. Now, when you drop audio files in, if you double click, you'll see down here, you've got this little menu. Now, if you click this, make sure it's on Complex or Complex Pro, because let's say this was recorded in at 76 beats per minute, and you're playing it now at 125. It's going to change the pitch of it as well. So it's going to, if you know when you're DJing on a Pioneer set decks, you've got this button which says master pitch. If you press that and you turn a song that was recorded at 116 to 130, it will speed up, but the pitch, it won't change in terms of tone. It won't go higher. If you turn that off, it kind of goes higher. So we don't want to change the pitch. So if you have it in Complex Pro or Pro, it won't change. If you put it in repitch, text, or any of these, it will change the pitch. It depends what sound you're going for. So let's just have a listen. I know that it doesn't start till here. I mean, if that's on beat, that's fucking lucky, but let's zoom in. So you always zoom in. It is. So I'm going to click here. I'm going to press set to 1. So we know that's on the 1. Now, what you're looking to do is when I was talking about the layout in the last video, you're looking to create loops that fit within a certain time scale. So the aim is to get this pattern to be able to play and loop around without it sounding funny. So let's just loop this section and see how, I don't even know what this is. Let's see how it sounds. It's kind of near or nearabouts. Now that's a drum beat. We don't want the drum beat. So let's drag in and see where we can find some funky shit. Now, I've been really lucky here. Ableton has automatically pretty much put it into time. That's not always the case. Genuinely, it's not. Sometimes you need to start. I'm going to set 1 from here. And you need to look at each individual bit. So these little gray notes are transients. Now, like mixing, you can look at the wave file, you can play the wave file and see where things are. Now, that's not quite in time because you want it on the 1. You've got 1, 2, 3, 4. These are 16th notes. So you've got the 1 there, the 2 there. So this really should probably be on the 2. This should probably be on the 1. Let's move across. Let's have a look. Now, not everything, because certain things are going to be playing offbeat within. It depends what it is. The easiest way to warp audio, if it's got a drum beat underneath, go with the clap. Try and put the clap in time with your clap, and the rest of it should fall in place. With vocals, it's a bit more difficult, but it's just trial and error. However, let's listen to what this is saying. And don't worry about if there's drum beats or anything underneath, because you're going to use an EQ to get rid of that bit anyway. You're just going to pull out some of the frequencies you want, and it's not going to sound how this sounds. You're not just going to rape the original sample. Let's have a look. So if we're going over a 2-bar loop, let's loop that. And you can slide back in and see where the next one starts. Perfect. There. You can come back along again. Let's have a look. You can change it. So that's close to there. We'll actually make it land on there. We'll take this. We'll make that land on there. We will take this. We'll make that land on the 3. We'll look down here. Maybe we'll take this. See, these transients don't always get it bang on, but that's the start. You can see it's quiet there, and then a note kicks in. So let's just drag that there. See what happens. You can fuck your timing up with this, so be careful. We'll take this transient, drag it back to the 2. Let's look along. We'll take this transient, stick it on the 4. We'll stick this one on the 1, 3. So that should, in effect, be in time. We'll see when I play it with the kick drum. Let's have a look. Yeah, that's fine. Is the rest of it in time? I'm not sure. We could be lucky. Let's have a look. Probably not. We need to drag that over. But again, it might be really subtle. You might not notice. You can get away with it. If you really want to work with all of the audio, it's a good idea to warp it into time first. So you come in, you make sure this warp selected, and you go in, you zoom right into where each note starts, and you put it onto the nearest marker point. So this there should slightly off the 2. It won't make a massive difference, but if you want it bang on, and this is really good as well if you're going to chop this audio into a drum rack. So I think I've shown you before, you can right click, you can slice it to MIDI, and you can slice it via warp marker, click 0 velocity, and what that'll do is it will take each individual, so it'll take from this yellow to this yellow into one clip, and then you can start playing it in. But we're not on about MIDI today, we're just on about working with a little bit of audio, and we're going to create from this different filtered loops. So we'll just get rid of the rest of this funky 70s fucking porno track. What I'll tend to do next is I'll grab an EQ and I'll decide what I want. So we've got all the bass line in there and stuff. We don't really want most of that lower frequency. So if I play this track again, and let's analyze this here. So this is your real low sub. You can't hear. I think your hearing ranges from like 20 hertz to 18,000 kilohertz, which is up the top, or 20 to 20. Depends how young you are and depends how good your ears are. Let's be honest. So you remember, we don't want it clashing with any of the sub frequencies. We don't want any of that happening. We just want some of the tinsel. So let's see. Click here. Create a low pass filter. Let's play it. So even though there's a bass line going boom, 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 you won't get rid of it by doing this. You'll still hear it a little bit, but you just won't have all the sub frequencies. You could use that. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to use auto filter to create, and I'll just put it on and I'll show you what I mean. We'll turn it down as well because it doesn't fit with the track. Always check your volumes. I mean, that's coming in, it's already peaking. What I tend to do is that's about the volume that'll work with the track. But we're not on mix downs yet, so let's not panic about it. Let's drag an auto filter on, and I'll show you what an auto filter does. So an auto filter, you can filter it like this. On each shape here represents how this blue line is curved. So let's have a look. That'd be cool if it was doing. You can create a funky pattern by this moving, and that comes down to automation. Now, you may not want to do that manually. You're certainly not going to sit there wiggling this along as you do it. I mean, you can record that in, I think, as long as you click this little, hang on, let me move this out of the way. There's a little circle there. If you click that and then click record, you can just move it manually and it record in whatever you're moving because it will record an automation lane. Now, my automation lane is already on. Remember, I'll say it again. You've got the little piano here. If you've got that on, you're playing your MIDI keyboard. Make sure that's off. If you press A, it turns the automation on and off. Wherever you click, you'll see it changes there. So the auto filter frequency will change. Now, for a filtered loop, you can go in and you can just draw things in. If you like, draw a pattern. See what happens. If you like that, you can stick with that. I mean, it doesn't sound great to me. To delete the automation, knock it down. So where there was, put the automation back on. What have I just done? Auto filter. So you see this little plus sign? Bring that down. Don't delete up here because you delete your actual audio file, and then you can just delete that and it resets. Make sure it's reset back to complete 0. So that's how it is. And wherever we move that, you see the lines moving down. So another way to do this, I normally will put it on this shape. So what this is doing is it's just moving anything within this blue line here, this blue little pyramid, are the only frequencies that are going to come out. And you can create something quite interesting from that. Let me move myself out of the way again. But let's try. Again, if you don't want to automate that in, there's a really cool little thing you can use. It's called an LFO, and it is in your Max for Live. With Ableton, you'll get certain Max for Live plugins, we could probably call them. That's probably the wrong word. Max for Live plugins, if it doesn't crash. Looks like I'm already on there, look. So if you come down to Max Audio Effects, you'll see this thing called an LFO. It's a low frequency oscillator. You've already taken the bass out, so you don't need to worry about that. But what this is doing is it's a constant wave at a certain speed. And what's really cool about this is you can map this to any parameter. So if you wanted to map it to this LFO to LFO, we'll fuck with that and see how that sounds in a moment. You can map it to the frequency, for example. So if I map that to the frequency, you'll see the frequency starts to move at the rate in which this LFO is moving. Now that's going from extreme to extreme. So it's going from the very bottom to the top of the frequency spectrum. You might not want that to happen. So you can, to solve that issue, you can bring the depth down and you'll see that it only wobbles from side to side a little bit. So the larger the depth, the more it wobbles from side to side. The lower the depth, the less it wobbles from side to side. Now, if you completely turn it off, it's stopped. You only might want it wobbling over a certain frequency like this. Now, to move it along, let's say you needed it wobbling to the left, you can offset it to the left a little bit. So let's say we wanted it wobbling just there, or you wanted it wobbling right at the top, you can move to the right. So you pick your frequency lane or where you want it to wobble. What's also important is the timing. So this HZ hertz is like manual timing. Now that's wobbling, but it might not be wobbling within time with your beat. If you click this little, it's cool. It's a cool function because what it can do is you can create some, let's play it and see how it sounds. At the depth a bit more. So I'm not sure the time, but listen, look what happens. When I turn this up, it gets faster. Or slower. But if you want it in time, just click this and then it's on. That will wobble in a bar. You can go for 16th notes, 8th notes. Let's try this. Move this over a little bit. Maybe make the depth a bit more. A bit too fast for me. And you can automate that as well. So as you look on the automation channel, you can automate any of these. You can just draw that in on top of it. So you could have it wobbling at this sort of speed. And then you could, for example, click this and change it. So whatever's the line is, whatever you've got it on here, the line will be there. So if we wanted that to wobble and then through this section, for example, maybe get a little bit, let's just come across here. Maybe get a bit faster. Say maybe there. Let's see why that sounds. So that's how you will start to create a filtered funky pattern. Now, I don't know what key this is in, this tune. You can use Key Finder and see. If it's in the fucking A minor scale, or it fits within that, we'll be lucky. But I'm anticipating it's not going to work with the bass line, so I'm not going to play it with the bass line. We're just going to play it with, let's turn everything back on. We're going to play it with the drum pattern and see what happens. We might need to turn it up a little bit as well, so I'll just move myself out of the way. Now that's okay. It's not completely different. The more you fuck with it and the more stuff you add on top of it, the more different it becomes. You can also go and chop it. So let me just turn this automation, all these automation lanes off. Let's press A. So let's say, for example, what you want to do was, if I take all of this off, actually, just mute them a second, and let's play the original tune. Let's say you just like that bit, highlight it, press and hold, drag it down just a little bit, and it'll split it. So you can remember your timing. So that's hitting on the 3, is it? Oh, I nearly fucked that up then, guys. Nearly fucked up. So here's a classic example of how you can fuck something up. So what I've done is I've just gone to the end of the note there and thought, you know what? I'm going to get that and duplicate it. It doesn't fit. Let me go back. So if you liked just this bit, for example, what you need to think about is you need to get it to fit into this section here. Now, if I loop that, this end little note might not work. It might not. Let's test it and see. So I'm just going to duplicate this and see how that sounds. It works okay. Or another example is what I can do is just take these four. So to do that, I'll double click. I'll come over to this bit. And that's the note, the culprit there. So I could take this and watch this file here. What's going to happen is that's going to drag across. I can drag this here. What's that's going to do? It's going to slow down this note, which will give it a bit more of a different feel. Now let's try just loop these two. So I'm going to select these two. We're going to press the loop. That works for you, cool. You can mess around with all these timings, so maybe we can go in here and see. That works for you, cool. You can drag and change, but I mean this because we put it in time was working in time anyway. So you could use that. We could put this LFO back on. We could put the auto filter back on. Play around with where we want it to be in the frequency spectrum coming out. Let's try that with the beat. Let's try the other section with the beat. So, you guys know I like to work in this view, not so much in this view. I'm driving the ideas down. Because what you don't want to do is end up with a fucking chain of a load of different audio samples. So you can turn these into clips. You can take the original clip. So let's take this one. Let's just drag it back out. Make sure it's not looped. Let's drag that there. Let's take the original clip. Make sure it's on the right parameter. There, that's the original clip. We'll save that as it is. And we've created this one. So we're going to take this. We're going to right click. We're going to consolidate. So we've got one clip. We're going to take these two. We're going to right click. We're going to consolidate. We're going to change the color so we know they're different. And then we'll just take one. We'll drag it over. And we'll pop it here. We'll take another one. We'll drag it over and we'll pop it here. So before you start fucking with the auto filter and stuff, because the auto filter is set to this channel, you can actually automate the individual clips. I'm going to take the original clip as well. I'm going to stick that there. I'm then going to come down to this clip and I'm going to just randomly chop it up. So we're going to take, remember these, the grid. So work with the grid if it's in time. So I'm going to take the first, this bit. I'm going to put that there. I'm going to take half of this bit and I'm going to put that maybe there. And again, you only want a 4-bar loop really. So let's have a look. Let me just drag all this onto the one so you can actually see. Onto the, if you're not sure, drag it onto the 5 so you can see. So we're going to take this section here like this. And that's going to sound different. Let's just hear that. Turn it back off. Don't worry about the claps and stuff because you can pull them out. Also, it's going to be filtered anyway, and your drum beat's going to overpower it. So don't feel you need to find a funky loop with no drum pattern. Well, fucking good luck finding that. You're going to be searching for ages. Anyway, the point is, you can chop and slice out any bits you want. If we want to take this little bit out, let's just fucking delete that and let's just go along here. And what we're going to do is going to take this little bit and we're going to consolidate this. That's now its own clip on its own, and we're going to drag this up to here. Let's change the color so we know it's different. Now, when you're in this view, you can double click the clip and you can automate it again. So if we play it here, let's listen. Let's loop that one. See how that doesn't quite land right? You can, again, start dragging stuff across. So if you want to fix this anchor point with a warp marker, and then you want to move this over because you think it doesn't sound right. Maybe this there, take this off. But sometimes, as I said, the transient doesn't land right. So that's the start of that note. So let's just pull that to the 3. About there. What's going on at the end of here? I'm not too sure, but that's not sounding, it's not sounding 100%. Let me drag this over. Drag this across. What I'm trying to do is get rid of, and then drag this across. You keep auditioning it until it sounds like a seamless loop, and you think, you know, it's different to what the original track was. It's a seamless loop. We're going to add effects to it anyway, so we're going to funk it up. So if I turn this back on, that's how I'm going to do actually. Let's delete these off and let's start again. And I'm going to show you how to automate the clips. The reason I'm going to show you how to automate the clips is to save you coming into here, go into your automation lane and doing a different pattern on each individual bit manually yourself. Because once you've automated the clip, that clip's automated on its own as its own entity. So when you drag that in, no matter where you drag that in, that automation pattern that you fixed for that clip will be on the actual clip rather than on the actual channel itself. So here we go. We'll double click this, and to access, first of all, foremost, let's put something on. So let's put an auto filter on. The auto filter, again, has got its own LFO on there. So if you were to start messing with it, like I said, like what with the LFO that we drag in, you've got your time in here, so you could put that into 16s and you can turn the amount up to keep that looping round. I don't think whenever you create a clip, make sure you go into it and press loop. So you can have it like that before you even put the LFO on, and then so you can LFO on top of an LFO. You can then change the I'll do this in a second within the clip. We'll change some of these parameters inside the clip. I'm just going to drop the LFO back on. Where was it again? Max for live, wasn't it? There we go. Max for live. We will link this to the frequency. So the frequency is moving. We'll pull the depth down. We don't want it wobbling across the whole thing. We want some of the sub. We don't want all of, not the sub, some of the low end. Maybe this is right. Let's see how that sounds. Let's audition it. Quite funky, right? Double click here to go into the actual clip, and you see this little note button there. Press that, and you'll see you've got here the clip, the LF, so you can automate the clip itself. So this is good for if you want to turn down the volume on the clip but not on the channel. So say you wanted to get rid of one note, you can click the clip, you can select volume, come up to your pencil here, and we can cut that individual note out. Well, that's not going to do, it's not going to turn the channel down, up and down. You don't want to do that because you want to decide where you're going to set this level later on. So you don't want to automate the volume on the channel, do it on the clip. So make sure on the clip. So watch this. Put that there. And that's the same for the auto filter. So let's say, for example, on the auto filter, we wanted to take, let's have a little butchers down here. The resonance. And what the resonance is the resonance is how high this goes. So it kind of does a volume boost. So if we want to make the resonance higher in certain places, that's where it's set at the moment. We can either take the pencil or we can make a smooth line. So the resonance will go higher in this bit. Now bear in mind, when you increase the resonance, you increase the volume. You're telling that frequency bit that it's on to go a bit higher. You can turn it up or down. You can come back in again. We can mess with, let's say, the LFO sync rate. It's on 1/6. So you could take this and say, you know what, during this bit, we're going to make that 1/2, and then we're going to go a bit faster here. Back to 1/6, and then we're going to go 1/24. This is probably going to sound terrible. It's going to wobble like fuck. But let's just hear. It's trial and error. Let's see how that sounds. It sounds nothing like the original clip, and that's the point. So what you can do is go through each individual clip you've made and change and make it whatever you want it to be. So you can change and automate the parameters on the clip. So now if I drop this clip we've just made, this one, onto here, this clip will make it green. Let's not make it green. Let's make it red. This clip's going to be different to this one, although they were the same. Now, any automation that I've done on the channel itself, like the LFO is going to continue to wobble, but if I turn that LFO off, and then remember when you come back into this view, unclick this orange box, let's listen to this one. See the resonance is moving on that one? Won't be on this one. That's because I've automated the actual clip itself. Now you can automate the LFO through the clip, but we didn't do that. We just automated on the channel. But that will give you much more creative diversity for you to be able to chop loops up, put them into here and just audition each one. Let's put that LFO back on for 1 second. See, there's a lot going on with this one. Not so much with this one. I noticed that didn't play through. So remember always to, when you consolidate a clip, make sure it's looped. But we can chop and change between these anytime. And then you just drag and drop whichever one you want in sequence onto your channel, and you've got a filtered loop. So you can do that with any audio at all. And you hear a lot of this sort of Chicago jacking house type of tunes. They use a lot of filtered loops. They use a lot of sampling. So they'll sample all sorts of mad tunes and stick them through. Now it's quite nice as if we take this one, for example, because we've looped it, you can then just drag it out. Let's say you just wanted this on there. You wanted it to be quite boring and have this running through the whole thing. It gives a nice sort of background element. Now, key finder again, let's just have a look out of interest to see what key this is. Key finder. What key finder thinks this tune is? Is it loaded? I think so. There we go. Telling me we've got a new version again. Probably should download that at some point. Let's drag this here. Let's take this loop, drag it onto key finder, stick it there, and let's see. Run batch analysis. Oh, it's being a dick again. Let me just consolidate that, the whole clip. So consolidate. If it does that for you, consolidate the clip and it tends to work. Most of the time it will find the key. So let's drag this back on. You see it goes underneath. Run batch analysis. And could not open audio file. Let's close key finder. It did this the other day on the other video. Not a good advertisement for key finder. That's probably why you should download the new version. Probably a bug. Open her up again. Take this, drag it on. run batch analysis, and it's been a prick. Anyway, well, I can't seem to find the key of this little bit. Let me try just a little clip and see if that works. One last try, guys. One last try for key find. Key finder play a ball today. What the fuck's this? What's going on here? I don't know. I'll tell you what, fuck key finder for now. But my point was, you could find out in theory, we didn't then, but in theory, you can find out what the key is that is, and then write your bass line around that. So if you want to start a funky tune, you can write a beat, you can pull in any audio clip off YouTube, whack it in, fuck around, chop it about, mess with filtering, doing some filtered loops, go into the actual clip itself, automate the clip, automate some stuff on the channel, put it in, and then build a baseline around that. So we can test our baseline and see if it works. We might be lucky. If not, what I'll tend to do is just pull up a baseline and start tapping keys until I hear it sounds right, and then go with that. Because ultimately, if it sounds right, it's okay. Let's see. Notice there, what happened was, because we had the clip originally here and we had the automation on the clip, when I've dragged it out, what it's done is it saved that automation just on that little bit and not on the rest. So rather than dragging it out, take your automated clip, control, click, let go of the mouse, control, click, let go of the mouse, control, click. Now the automation lane should be on all of that. I can tell because we sped up the LFO. Once you've got it in, you can come back to the channel again. You can add another EQ, for example. You can use multiple EQs. You don't just need to use one. You can add an EQ again to make it sit better in the mix. You can fuck with the volume, make it sit better with the mix. You can add delays on it. You can play with audio quite well. You're just limited. You can't play individual notes unless if I've still got the original. I've deleted it. We had that original file that we warped. Let me click this. We haven't warped anything, but I'll use this to show you now actually. So let's click warp marker. We're just going to hit on the pretend that's 1. It's not, but let's pretend that's 1. 3, 2, 3, 4. This is the long way of doing it because you can actually do it. If I right click here and click, I haven't warped this one. I haven't made clip markers. If you go here and go to slice to MIDI, you can do it via quarter notes, and that'll do the same thing. I've just warp marked quarter notes there. So if I do this, built-in velocity, click OK, it will slice it into 8 sections. And then on your MIDI keyboard or your pad or whatever you do, whatever you use, you've then got this. This is what the old hip hop guys used to do. They use like the MPC chop. For each individual sound, what it'll do, you can have it as a one shot, so it'll play the whole thing out. You can have it as a classic, and if you touch it and let go, it'll only play for as long as you hold it down. But let's say once you're at this point, let's say you don't want that clap, but you like this little bit, you can just drag that over anyway to there. If you wanted that to be like this, you can do it well. So then you can just audition each bit, say you like this. Now the reason, you can then put, you know, some arpeggiator on it and give it, play that along with your tune, and something can sound funky. But remember, this hasn't got any automation on it because all it's done is it's taken the raw audio file and put it into this. So you could write your own little MIDI pattern of the loop you've chopped up as your slices. Draw back. You want it to draw in, and then same again. Jump onto here. You can do the automation on the clip, as I was saying. So you can automate the clip from here, or you can drag an auto filter on and start automating the lane, and you can come out with some really funky shit. So hopefully that's helped just a little bit about working with audio and some filtering. Any questions, give me a shout.